So back in Fredericksburg, off Charles Street, just off William Street, and I'm headed to the James Monroe Law Office and Museum. And this actually wasn't his law office. They ended up finding out, but it's on property James Monroe owned. Original office was a wooden building back behind this. And yeah, so James Monroe, of course, 5th president, last of the Virginia dynasty, first 4 of the 5 presidents, all from Virginia, and the last of the Revolutionary War presidents. And they called him the last of the cocked hats, meaning last from the whole era of powdered wigs and wearing those breechers. So, and if you're interested, tickets are $5. And I'm gonna go check this place out. Hopefully I can film inside. And right next to the Masonic Cemetery, I'm gonna check that out here soon. Yeah, and he actually lived in Fredericksburg from 1786 until 1789. 1789, he moved down to Charlottesville. Okay, and just to let you know, this has been an active museum since 1927. And most famous for the Monroe Doctrine. And yeah, that stated that the Americas, North and South America, were off limits to European intervention. After the Napoleonic Wars, a lot of countries were seceding from Spain. They were fighting revolutions, Mexico, Chile, Argentina, Peru. And yeah, pretty much stated that nobody else from Europe could come in and take over. And also, Russia was trying to claim some territory up in the Canadian area. Pretty cool bust. All right. Hopefully they let me film inside. Okay, I'm in the main room of the exhibit. And yeah, his great-granddaughter and great-great-grandson. He's the one who opened the building at Lawrence Hose. So yeah, like I say, current building built 1816, add on this room right here, 1836, and then the room to the left, 1850. And this lists all the homes he's lived in. And born out in Westmoreland County, same county as George Washington, Robert E. Lee, and Monroe Hall. It looks like the house he grew up in. And when he was 16, he left to go to William and Mary. Let's see, his wife, Elizabeth Courtright. And yeah, he went to William and Mary about 1.5 years before joining the Revolutionary Army, or I guess it would have been a militia that became part of the Continental Army. Fought in that for a couple years. After that, he studied law under Thomas Jefferson. He actually never got to finish college. And then he came to Fredericksburg to practice law. That was from 1786 until 1789. And he had a house he rented from his uncle down off Caroline Street, down by the city docks over there. And like I say, after he left Fredericksburg, he moved out to Charlottesville, lived downtown Charlottesville until Highland was built. That's the house he's probably most associated with. And it's right near Monticello. And he moved in there 1799 and owned the home until the end of his presidency, which I believe was 1825. Yeah, and actually probably didn't spend much time there, because I know he lived in the governor's mansion for a while. Of course, he lived in the White House. He spent a total of 7 years in Europe, 6 years in France, and another year in London, and spent some time in Spain. But oh yeah, and when he became president, the White House, or the president's house, was still being constructed. It was burned down, of course, War of 1812. And then after his presidency, he lived out in Oak Hill, out in Loudoun County. And yeah, after that, he ended up moving. His wife died at Oak Hill, and then he moved up to New York to be with his daughter, and that's where he died, up in New York City. Okay, and looks like that's what they believed. Yeah, his used to look like, yeah, right here off Charles Street, William Street. Of course, you had all your dependencies, kitchen, stable. So pretty cool. Little cockade you would put in your hat. An ivory tusk back there. And this old pot, you can it's coated with a salt glaze. You would see that a lot back then. And yeah, he had an extensive career in politics. After he got his law degree under Jefferson, became a delegate, a Virginia delegate. He served 4 terms as Virginia governor, Secretary of War, Secretary of State, of course, President. And okay, yeah, a lot of things happened during his career. If you watch my video on Hanover Tavern, it talks about Gabriel's Rebellion. It was a big slave revolt, and the objective of the revolt, the goal was to capture James Monroe, who was at the time, and this was in 1800. Yeah, luckily it was thwarted before it ever happened. And here's a story about Marquise Lafayette's wife, Madame Lafayette, and some French revolutionaries had captured her. She was in jail, set to be beheaded, and he helped have her released. So, yeah, served first 3 years. He was ambassador to France under George Washington, and something happened because he was eventually recalled. And yeah, partook in the Louisiana Purchase. He was sent back to France. Thomas Jefferson lived out there 1803, really until 1806. In 1806, he spent about a year, like I say, living in England and Spain. But yeah, he was set to go over and negotiate just buying New Orleans, and ended up buying the whole territory. Okay, and there's one of those cocked hats back there. And yeah, it looks like that's it for his room. And just to let you know, a couple other big accomplishments while he was president. There was the Treaty of 1818, which created that whole 49th parallel. It created the border between us and Canada that pretty much stretched from the Great Lakes all the way out to the Pacific Ocean. And also, he purchased, while he was president, purchased Florida for $5 million from Spain. So, yeah, that was another big one. So this is the Revolutionary War Room. And yeah, like I say, he attended William and Mary about a year and a half before joining the Revolution. While he was there, he joined the Freemasons, where he got involved with a group that stormed the governor's palace. And I think it was a group, about 29 of them. They stole a bunch of ammunition that the British had seized from the Williamsburg militia, so they stole it back. And then, yeah, fought in many battles up in New York and the New Jersey area, kind of toward the beginning of the war. And yeah, he famously crossed the Delaware, went into the Battle of Trenton with George Washington, and that's supposed to be him holding the flag. Although this picture isn't accurate, he crossed earlier in the night, but before George crossed, he crossed and then became a lookout. And Battle of Harlem Heights. Okay, yeah, his Masonic apron. Yeah, Freemason out in Williamsburg. And he did attend the lodge here in Fredericksburg while he lived here. And this is probably his most famous painting, painted by this guy, Rembrandt Peale. Okay, yeah, same painting. And he was actually injured in the Battle of Trenton. He was shot, and actually an artery was severed. And so it was a pretty serious injury. And this would be his first signature on an official document. Let's see, signed by when he was a major, and he signed a furlough for some soldier. Yeah, this Battle of Monmouth was his last. And this is a letter from General George Whedon, who's buried next door in the Masonic Cemetery, and just giving him some advice on some property to look at for when he moved here to Fredericksburg. And this room is known as the Era of Good Feelings. And while he was president, it was considered the era of good feelings. There was a peaceful time, and I know the Federalist Party had dissolved, so he actually won his second presidential election unopposed. Nobody ran against him. And let's see, he talks about slavery. I know he owned about 200 slaves, mostly out when he lived in Highland. While he was president, 5 states joined the Union. Oh, and one other thing that he's famous for was the Missouri Compromise. I had forgotten to mention. And what happened with that is when Missouri applied to become a state, they wanted to become a slave state. Some politician in New York kind of objected because at the time there were an equal number of free states, slave states, and Missouri would have thrown off the balance in Congress. So they eventually eventually while they were discussing it in Maine, it said they wanted to join as a free state, so they kind of both joined, kind of evening things out. But the ultimate compromise was this 3630, where Missouri could come in as a slave state, and but you couldn't have slavery north of this line that obviously ran halfway through the country. Oh, and another thing I didn't mention, he was part of the American Colonization Society, and the capital of Liberia is called Monrovia, named after him, and it was a colony for freed slaves. So, and these chairs, a couple chairs that were in the White House, and James Monroe had purchased them from a Russian ambassador who was leaving to go back to Russia. So, yeah. Pretty good painting, I guess, of his wife. All right, a couple pistols that were given to him by James Madison, and they were given to James Madison from I guess the ruler of Argentina. And back here, this is kind of represents the time where he lived in France. And this lady here is Napoleon's stepdaughter, and she went to school with James Monroe's oldest daughter, and they became really good friends. As a matter of fact, his daughter named her child after her, Hortense or something like that. Alright, some sort of sculpture. It says 1803, so I'm just going to guess that this is the Louisiana Purchase. This is a pretty cool gilded chair that he got from his France. It was somehow given to him during the Louisiana Purchase. James Monroe collected clocks and barometers. That was his thing. So, yeah, of course, a lot of books from his library. All right, so that's all I've got for James Monroe, and apologize if I was kind of all over the place there. And yeah, I've been told I should promote my channel, so if you like these kinds of videos, hit the like button, and you can also subscribe. So see ya.